coming along to talk about the fourth industrial revolution. Because I don't know if you noticed, but we are in the fourth industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution, who remembers? What was it? What happened? Come on. Hands here, clever guys, engineers, entrepreneurs, investors. Silence in the back. First industrial revolution, what happened? We harness water and power for steam. There you go. For steam, mechanized production. Second industrial revolution, what happened? Hands, wake up, guys at the back. Yeah, there's a hand there. Second industrial, what happened? Come on. Second, electric power to create mass production. Yes. Third industrial revolution. Any hands? Any suggestions? You're thinking it? Yes, yes, third industrial revolution. It was the electric power. It was, I have written it down. Electronics, of course, and information technology. Yes? You don't agree? You don't agree. And the fourth? The fourth is giving us smart factories. Smart factories. Many large-scale companies will lose their competitiveness if they remain indifferent to the development that this means. So to talk about this, we have a fantastic panel moderated by the Digital Industry XO. What is XO? XO? For our own Mario Lopez from Accenture, Wade the Move, and then we have Caroline Das-Monfray from FTI Consulting, Nabil Malouli, VP of Customer Solution and Innovation at DHL, and Fernando Gago, Head of Open Innovation, Kaleidoscopic Logistics. Now you can give them a round of applause. Mario, bueno, Nabil, Caroline, and Fernando. Here they are.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Okay. I think that she has made almost all my introduction. So, well, thank you all of you for joining to this panel. We were discussing this morning about how to start talking to you with kind of topics, and I think that we are going to base most of our panel in our experience, sharing experience on this digital way, this digital roadmap that we are pushing in some of the companies in which we are working. As Helena has said, we are already in that fourth revolution, maybe a silent revolution because we are not seeing how people is crazy on the street, but we are seeing people crazy in the companies. They are trying to understand exactly what does mean in this revolution, how to start, which is the right roadmap that they have to follow. And well, I think that we are able to explain to our companies that we should base this roadmap in 4 pillars. One is how we are going to be creating new products, new services, a smarter solution for our businesses. Second is that we are going to transform the core business of our companies. The third one is how we are going to adapt the way of working of our people, how we are going to transform our workforce. And the last one, but I think that is even the most important of all of them, is that the ecosystem is now a must. Okay, we are not working anymore in a silo, in a corporate business, just isolated, only one system information. Okay, we are working in an ecosystem, open ecosystem, and this is one of the most important things. Well, I think that just to link with the point of how to start, okay, I would like that if you can share some of your first experience in this digital transformation around the industrial world. Okay, I think that will be really interesting. Okay, if you want to start, Nabil, for sure.
Yes, so I'll start. Yeah, good afternoon. So what we see, I mean, when we talk about Industry 4.0 and really the revolution around new technologies in the manufacturing, we actually do it's very, very related also to the logistics, because a lot of the application of manufacturing are actually similar to logistics, on top of the fact that in almost all the manufacturing sites, you have very, very intense logistic processes for basically supporting the manufacturing. So all the technology that you see going from 3D printing to IoT, robotics and so on are things that we're looking at intensively to see what are the use case. The way we work on innovation is we look at mega trends. So we look at an application or a trend like robotic, and then we identify the different type of robotics that would apply to our business. And then we look into use cases. So for example, collaborative robots, right? So it's one of the areas that we've identified as a critical area, because collaborative robots are flexible, easier to implement, easier to adjust. You can have multiple use. So we look at that, and we define this as an area where we want to focus. We look who are the leading companies in technology in developing this type of robotic solutions, and then we'll work with them on use case, proof of concept. Once we see that there is value, we proved with one of our customers that there is actually very strong value for the business, either improvement of processes, productivity time, a cost saving, just improvement of the experience or the time that it takes to do a manufacturing process or logistic process. Then we go into commercialization of this type of technology, and then we try to scale it the faster we can in the highest number of places we can. So that's kind of like the flow, talking robotics, but this is apply the same for drones, apply the same for autonomous vehicle, and apply the same for IoT technologies, for example, on the things we do. So I think that's the way we look at it from a big perspective, and after I'll talk about some examples as we go through the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Nabil. Caroline, please.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'd like to pick on the point you made, Mario, around ecosystems, because what we're seeing here is that these trends and these logistical platforms and these supply chains actually cut across vertical silos. They cut across industries. If you think about the IoT component, there's also a payments component. There's also a B2C, a B2B. It's all connected. And so, one of the areas which I've been thinking about a lot is, where are some of these ecosystems going to form? And then who are the players in those ecosystems? There will be some mid-market players, there will be startups, there will be large corporates. And ultimately, in these ecosystems, you'll have a lot of collaboration. And one of the questions we think about a lot is, where do you collaborate? And where do you compete? And sometimes within your own company, you will have parts of the business that collaborate together and also parts of the business that compete. The other question that is quite topical is around trust and privacy and really protecting some of these supply chains and some of the data that flows across the board. Because ultimately, now we have a huge risk of cyber threats. We have a lot of the data that's being connected across these supply chains, these businesses, these customers being available. And the data pool is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are some major implications around the protection from a financial services standpoint, but also thinking about data privacy breaches and how it could be used for purposes that are perhaps not what we aim for in the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk later maybe about the blockchain and how it could be lever for the supply chain between unknown partners, okay, and just to share information the most perfect way. And Fernando, please.
From my side, I guess talking from the standpoint of a mid-sized logistics company who at some point chose innovation and strategy as its ought to survival, meaning that's the way we compete, the way we can gain contracts compared to much bigger players. So this was a no-brainer for us. We see how the industry is going, and we see that we need to be there. Now the question is how do you do that, right? How do you become a relevant player in a technology field coming from a traditional 3PL position that we were? In our case, it was clear that we need to do it through the open innovation strategy, meaning a process that Nabil described perfectly, in the sense of we are not going to develop internally any of these technologies, not going to develop our own robots, not going to develop our own IoT systems, our own sensors, and so forth. We're going to find who's best worldwide doing that, and we're going to give them our knowledge in the logistics field and kind of the layers in order to apply that to a real case scenario. That's how our whole strategy is done. Talking about like topics that we kind of briefly introduced, of course, I guess blockchain is a big one. Robotics is a very big one. In our case, the self-driving vehicles is a big, strong bet of the company. Maybe we have time, we can talk about how they are different from other type of robotics, AGVs, traditional. IoT, of course, sensoring and also knowing what's going, but not only knowing what's going in real time, but also putting all your data into good use, not the bad use that Caroline was talking about and scaring us before, but the good use about knowing what's really happening beyond the experience of your workers, know what's going on your factories, on your warehouses with the data in hand and kind of working it nicely. And those are the main topics we are focusing on.
Well, thank you for sharing this. Based on your current experience and let's say the feeling of the pulse of the market of the businesses, what do you think? Which is the technology that can be used that is mature enough right now? Because again, we have been talking about drones, we have been talking about cobots, we are talking about the use of blockchain for supply chain. Which one do you think that could be the more mature right now to start pushing in our businesses for manufacturing and supply chain logistics? You want to start?
I can
yeah, please.
Start. Well, my personal view, and we don't have a consensus within a big organization like ours, but not everybody look at it the same way. But I think today, what is really ready for big scale and that is working, proven to have huge impact is the robotic aspect. I think things like blockchain or technologies like blockchain are still on the early stage as to what they can really deliver in manufacturing. But so first of all, robotic is definitely not new for manufacturing, right? I mean, You look at some of the factories that are like 30 years old, you go there and there's huge machinery and huge automation that is 25, 30 years old. The big difference is this was really for the intense, heavy processes. And everything that needed flexibility was still done by humans. Now, this is changing. And what's changing is really the ability of these robots to be easily programmed. The cost of these robots are not anymore prohibitive, so that you can have a return on investment within a 2-3 years time frame, so that decisions are much easier to take when you look at what you're going to have to invest and the impact that it's going to have on the business. The other thing is we see a lot of very fancy stuff on the press about drones and about blockchain and all that. Reality is, if you look at a big manufacturing site, it can go from 1,000 people to 15,000 people. In a 10,000 people site, if you can improve something that improves 5 minutes of an employee per day, you're savings in the millions right away. You're saving in the millions. So if you can improve just a little process, you save actually a huge amount of money immediately. So, but of course, when you solve a little process that has nothing sexy, it doesn't come on the news. If you develop a process on RPA, you automate something. So I think it's very important, especially if there are entrepreneurs or people that are working in this. Like look at that. I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you come with a technology or just something that can improve a small process on big scale, it's a done deal immediate. We went with a customer, a very important retail brand, to one of our innovation center. We showed them all the stuff that exists. You know what they wanted to implement immediately? An autonomous cleaning robot, a floor cleaning robot. They left, they said, we love it. We're going to do it next week, we're going to buy them. It's crazy. And we showed them all the latest things. Why? Because they saw this and they are like, oh, we spend so much money into. They look at the number of the cost of the robot. They said, well, we're gonna take 50 right away. So I think there's a big, we have to be very careful as to what is coming, and blockchain. I believe it's gonna have a huge impact also for the industry, but we are not there now. Now, if you want to go and implement things that have significant impact and that are very powerful, I think robotic is definitely the one that in manufacturing and logistics has a huge potential impact, very short term.
Yeah. Can I cheat and give you 3?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the industry. I think to your point, there's a baseline layer that's around cost reduction straight away. I mean, with automation, with robotics, there's so many things we can do that straight away take out millions of dollars in cost. So that's the non-sexy level, but it makes good business sense. I think in terms of the impact and the disruption that we're going to see, for me, the 3 combined technologies that are going to have a huge impact are IoT, analytics, and machine learning, the three of them taken together, because just to give you a bit of context in terms of numbers, IoT, so Internet of Things, connected objects to the internet, that is just going exponential right now. There's going to be more objects connected to the internet than people on this planet in the next 2 years. And I think that, combined with the data that's being generated, and then the ability to make sense of that data and turn it into something useful, to your point, whether it's predictive analytics, whether it's real-time management, whether it's customer experience design, smart supply chain, whatever it is, it's going to be enabled by data. And I think going forward, a lot of that is going to revolutionize everything, not just for business, but for people in the world. How we play, how we travel, how we work, everything is going to be revolutionized by that.
In terms of, I guess, technologies, I would just add that I see that it's ready to do like real stuff today is artificial vision in some different scenarios. Okay, from some of our clients, that might mean error recognition in pieces at a fast-paced production line, but also in our case, for example, and that goes to the point of like quick wins or small fixes that get a lot of savings. Develop a multi-scan code reader where you can have all the codes and all the labels and all the boxes in the warehouse at the same time with one swipe of the cell phone. That saves tons of time of people doing warehouse management, filling in, and so forth. That's the non-sexy part. And I just want to make one point regarding the fancy stuff that comes in the newspaper, which is usually interesting but also dangerous, because you run into plant managers or factory managers say, no, we have to automatize that process over there. Why? I don't know, because I saw it and some people do it and we really have to do it. And that's very risky, because that's what I call the Frankenstein effect, because you start thinking, like, isolated, I have to automatize it, then I'm going to put a robot there, and then you end up with a system that maybe is not ready to talk to each other, and you kind of lose all the actual value. I mean, step by step is good, doing things by things in order to build confidence is good, but someone somewhere has to have in the mind the vision of what's going to factory look like 5-10 years from now, and how the autonomous robot is going to talk to my production system in order to know where everything is. It's going to talk to my IoT that tells me where the forklifts are, and they're going to be, so they coordinate together. Otherwise, you start creating this technology fear and everything. Oh, this doesn't work, and you mix the traditional way of working with technology and create this whole reaction to change, right? So coordinating it, I think, is important too.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. I love Nabil's approach about cleaning the house. Okay, before I started to create new things. Well, I really trust on the technology that you have been commenting. I will add that it's important to do that digital roadmap, just to avoid just doing things, just to die by doing proof of concept. Okay, I think that we have seen that in a lot of businesses that they have been doing proof of concept during the last 5 years, and they never make the step to go to a productive environment. So for me, again, based on my experience, it's really important to sit all together with different people in your business and try to draw, okay, where you want to be in 2025 in terms of your digital business. Try to understand, okay, in a very honest way, where you are, where your starting point in OT, in IT, in data, in security, in processes, in people, okay? And also define which is your priorities. And obviously, moving the levers, okay, to get the most impact at the very beginning, just to get traction. Okay, maybe it could be just improving the operational efficiency in the plant, because, okay, you know that just putting some cleaning robot could be something, okay, it's not fancy, but it's going to save time, and you can invest the time of that people to start thinking about the future. For sure, if you are in an environment very intense in terms of assets, okay, having all your assets, all your devices connected, okay, will be a must. Why? Because if you're not able to gather all that data and analyze it, you're blind. Then you're not able to understand what is happening. Okay, this morning I was talking with a client. Okay, they know that they are wasting a lot of energy in their different production line, but they don't even have a smart meter in any of their machines. They don't know. Okay, the only figure that they got is the total energy consumption, okay, at the end of the month. Okay, they are not able to improve their process because they are not able to measure. No? And having all the machine connected, obviously in a very, very rational way, will be a must. Okay, and I think that Fernando, in the topic of the visual, the artificial vision, okay, and everything related, like how to apply algorithms to identify different kind. Obviously, we are improving all our algorithms, but right now they are very narrow in terms of scope. But well, we are, for example, we are applying that in lines to recycle objects, okay, to recognize which kind of material, no? And well, in the case of recognition errors in manufacturing on the terminal line, I think that is something that is really right now, no? Okay, you have said, thinking about the future technologies will be great, but there are a lot of things to do right now, okay, just... Okay,
that's right. The other thing as well is the job is never done, right? It's not a case of you put the roadmap together and that's it. It keeps on changing, it keeps on evolving, and things go wrong sometimes. And I think the ability to respond to a crisis in real time and leveraging data to make sure that you mitigate a crisis is going to be incredibly important going forward.
Yeah, we are just, okay, and this is something that, okay, I think that it's happening to all of us, okay, our top executives are pushing us to innovate, and they don't want that we fail, no? And I think that is, we are just in a balance, trying to do the best thing without no error or with the minimum error, but okay, I think that right now it's a must to fail, no? The point is just to fail as fast as possible, okay, and try to recover, no?
Yeah, and I think on this point, I think to Fernando's point, you really have to adjust, right? And if you look at the successful companies, they all adjusted significantly at one point, right? On their business model and the way they do things. One question I get a lot, for example, is the drone applications, right? So everybody is wondering when drones are going to be delivering, your batatas fritas at your door, right? Question, and the answer is very simple. If I ask this room, who in this room would be very happy to see drones flying above their head, above their house, in front of their balcony, on top of their kids' school? Can you raise your hand? Okay, we have one crazy person there. Please take the name. I'm joking, but so the answer is there, right? The social acceptance for that technology application is not here. So you can imagine if we, who are really people that are technologically oriented and interested, we have this thinking. Imagine the people in the government, what they think about this, right? So the social acceptance of that technology use is not there. Now, drones have fantastic application for delivering medical organs, for delivering a product in remote areas where there is maybe a disaster, so that then it becomes fantastic, where you would usually or traditionally use maybe a helicopter, which makes much more noise, much more costly, and so on, much more disruptive for the society. So when you look at this, like we're now using drones for security. And there in a private area, in a private manufacturing site or warehouse, you can actually use drone for security today. Nobody's going to come and tell you, oh, why are you filming and so on, because that's a private area. So there are like huge applications that you can actually do today that have great return on investment, great impact, great use of the technology. And there is the more popular view as to a certain technology. I think for every business, the most important is to look at what is of value to you and your customers, right? Always keeping in mind that ultimately, if it's not going to deliver value to your customers, you might want to think about it twice. If it has a huge value internally, well, that's very important as well. But you should really look at that lens into smart factories and all these new technologies. They're only smart if they bring value to your business. Otherwise, it doesn't really help.
And to society, if I could add to that, because if you take the example of health data, just to kind of put some of those comments in context. Data, right now, there are some mega kind of databases that are being populated with genome data, with health data. So, if you take the startup 23andMe, it's got something like 5 million customers right now. we're starting to cure some types of cancer with data, which is brilliant. But then you start thinking about the broader application around, well, will some people be out of the market for life insurance at some point? Will people be, get a higher premium because they're bad drivers or because they have, a healthy history that doesn't make them profitable customers? So there's always that balance of doing the right thing for your customers and also one step further, thinking about the application and to a point about the drones. We don't want drones outside of kids' schools, but we also need to be careful where the data goes.
Mm-hmm. Can I make this sort of a counterpoint to the drone point? While I agree completely in the case of drones, I guess at a social level it's not accepted, so hence the business don't pursue it as fast. It is also true that our experience as individuals, in our user experience as technology user individuals for services, is now pushing, let's say, business applications further, in the sense that before, some years ago, technology was at the office, and at home you didn't have that much technology. Right? Your best computer was at the office, and all the technology was in companies. Now, the evolution of the services that you have as an individual online for e-commerce, ordering food and have it next minute on your door, all these services, and then you go to the office and you have work services to deal with your providers. Why don't I have my tracks on the door when I click my application on the phone? Why I have to still call them and send emails to my provider, right? So in some sense, the experience you get as an individual is also pushing up, because people come to the office and want to have the same experience they have. And in some sense, like the balance shift, and now the best technology or the more user-friendly technology is at home on your phone and it's not when you're sitting on your desk. So that also comes like...
Well, I think that this is one of the thing that we have seen in that revolution. No? I think that the consumer revolution happened before the industrial one. Okay, we were living it during the last 10 years, we can say. Okay, and right now all our companies are being pushed. Okay, in that way, no. I think that this is something that we are just living it. Again, we will need to deal with it. Okay, I would like to. We have still 10 minutes more or less. I would like to, if you can share, okay, let's say some situation in which some critical situation in this kind of projects, just to represent, okay, which are the tricky points or something that you consider that we have to take into account, okay, because I think that the topic is revolution in logistics and smart manufacturing, but my feeling is that we could be speaking here during hours, okay, about a lot of topics. Sometimes it's very difficult to narrow to only one, but you can just explain, okay, which are the tricky points that you have been struggling with during the last implementation projects and so on. Okay, I think that will be useful. No? I think that just to represent that, okay, this is very, okay, I think that I feel a bit, okay, I feel very, very happy to live in that area, no? But there's also a lot of difficulties to deal with.
Mm-hmm. In my case, for example, if we talk about challenges, tricky points, or pains that we find in implementing technology in our environments, of course there are technological challenges, and one very stupid one is you will be surprised of how many projects are being developed to a certain level of investment in time of people, and then to find out that the area where it needs to be implemented doesn't have the right wireless connection. And then it would be more money to invest in the connection itself than the project, so as stupid as that. But where I think there's a real challenge, and it's the nature of how our industry works, is the misalignment of the decision-making and the incentive system in order to implement technology. What I mean is that happens at a geographical level and at a time level. For example, if we provide services to an auto production company, right, and work in contracts of that gets renewed every 1, 2, 3 years, these companies don't want to invest, even less at a factory level, right? They don't want to commit to a big investment. They say, you invest, you make the savings, I still pay you by the movement, I still pay you for your services, so sometimes the logistics company have to make the investment. Yeah. But then nobody knows what's going to happen with the next tender in 2, 3 years. So at the same time, you are kind of trying to justify an investment and return. The same thing happens regionally. We work for example, 2, 3 different plants worldwide for a big company headquartered in Detroit. Yes, we could do that in this factory, but in order for it to really make the return, it would have to be implemented. So sometimes you have to make a bet and say, we're going to do this even in this factory at a loss, just in order to call headquarters attention and have it roll it out in different factories. So both geographically and time-wise, there are not sometimes the right incentives. And although you have to look for projects that have a return that is very short and already happens with a very limited scope geographically. While there are projects that are maybe have more potential, but because there's not the right incentive to do, they're never implemented. So
Yeah.
I mean that's the nature of our business. I would not complain about 3PLs because that's what our unit
Yeah.
works from, but I wish they all worked for us. So it would be yes for us.
Okay. Caroline?
Yeah, so 2 points for me. I think the first one is that, we were just saying earlier, everything changes all the time. And I think whenever there is a trend, there's also a counter trend. So if I think about, the way logistics are headed right now, you could argue that 3D printing is going to disrupt that a lot. Because a lot of the things that are moving across supply chains right now and being stored in various warehouses in different places could actually be 3D printed locally. So that's kind of the first, and there's kind of an entrepreneurship, kind of gig economy story around that. The second observation I would make is that very often when I talk to clients about kind of their digital play around this type of topic, we talked about ecosystem and the fact that you have to collaborate to compete.
Yep.
But very often the companies that could really go to market together, do something together, collaborate on supply chain or logistics together, actually data ownership gets in the way. So to work together, you've got to share your data. And there are only so many platforms out there, right? So at some point, someone needs to make a decision. Where will that data be created? Which one do I capture? Which one do I own? Which one do I share? And I think to a certain extent, these decisions are going to shape logistics going forward.
Yep.
So I think I'll try to give you the three that are the most impactful. I think the first key to success is not try to go from a Fiat to a Ferrari in one shot. Rather look at incremental improvement when you go. You can have very ambitious goals, and I think you should not be shy on very ambitious goals. But even medium-sized companies, it's very difficult to do a revolution when it comes to implementing a new technology. So I think we've seen it. We've had projects where it was very difficult to move because it was very ambitious, and we realized that by looking at modular changes and shift, actually it's much easier with critical milestones in project. I think that's one. Second is, I think we are in the era of cooperation and competition. So you don't necessarily need to own the technology. Technology is changing very fast. We've taken a route where we really don't necessarily look at owning technology, but more partnering with who is best in class. And with best in class in a certain technology today, when it comes to robotic and AI and so on, can be completely different in 2 years. And it doesn't need 10 years, right? It really it changed so fast, so that it's very difficult to remain the best. But by partnering, you can have that ability to actually partner with the best of the time being, right? I think that's a key point also that is really critical for success. And the third one is to have cross-functional teams that work on the project and that it's driven by the business, not by the technology side of your company. So in many cases, when we talk about new technology, it's usually either the technology group or the IT team, as we call them in big organizations. By the way, startups, they don't have IT teams, right? They have software developer, they have other titles than big corporations. But I think if you don't bring that right balance of teams working on a project like this, when you talk about bringing new technology, you might end up with very ambitious goals, very good vision, but you cannot execute it. Because when you have an ERP system or a technology landscape that is 20 years old, 25, which is pretty common actually in big companies, for you to start plugging in different new technology is not that easy. So if you don't have this type of conversation early on as to how do we bring technology practically fast, and also that it doesn't end up costing you millions of dollars on SAP or IBM consultant to do it, that's going to be very helpful at the time you're ready to do it, and especially at the time you want to scale it and make it big. So I think these are the the three ones: the team, partners, and the evolution or revolution.
Well, I think that's very, very valuable. Okay, well, I want to add my 2 cents on here. Okay, I think that for me, the most important thing, okay, is to have a clear goal. Okay, just to have a vision about where you want to be. Obviously, the way will be in some cases uncertain. Okay, you have to be focused on what you want to do. Okay, what you have commented, no, is you can have a very ambitious goal, but you have to focus on what you want to do in the next step. Okay, and define exactly which is what you want to get. It's key to be brave. Okay, right now we are in a revolution. It's not just a matter of just copying what your competence is doing. It's about doing different things. Obviously, you will need to measure your risk, no? And the last point that I think that is the most important is to start moving. Okay, I see people and companies that just are thinking and thinking and thinking about what they have to do. Okay, about all this technology that we have been commenting, that is it's a myriad of technologies. Okay, it's about start moving and start doing. Okay, start small, think big, and start moving in that direction. No? Okay. I cannot see the future, but I'm really happy to be part of that future. Okay, so more than happy to share with you all this time. Okay, not sure if you want to have something. I just wanted to recap some ideas, technology that we have been commenting. Okay, we have been talking about big data, analytics, machine learning, IoT. We have been talking about artificial vision. We have talked also about augmented reality, what we can do with virtual reality, about logistics, the use of cobots, robots, and drones. Okay, I think that there are too many things to do. Okay, the point is just to start doing things, just try to differentiate and find that lever that make your business the root. Okay, so well,
maybe there might be a question.
Yeah, something that you want to ask about any of the points?
Or comments? No?
We
Okay.
were so clear. No questions.
Yeah, or too many things maybe. Okay, so well, thank you very much. Thank you, Fernando. Okay, Caroline. Okay, thank you a lot.
Mario. Thank
okay,
you.
so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.